Hi everyone, Materim here again with another narrative battle, and this one has the forces of Bretonnia under Lord Alphoneous, noted from here on as the Bretonians Corrupted, versus Beastmen and Warriors of Chaos. Each side is going to have 4,000 points, with the Corrupted Bretonians having that full 1,000, and each of the Beastmen and the Warriors having 2,000 apiece. King Alphoneous Serpine sat upon his throne with a look of disdain. He had been plagued by would-be knights and the lowborn's constant complaining about the southern lands, and how their forces were not strong enough to hold back the rising chaos. He could not believe how weak and whiny his nation had become after his glorious ascension to the throne. He just shook his head as the last peasant left the throne room, after getting a severe tongue-lashing about his weakness from his king. Alphoneous retired to his room and knelt before the altar of the lady. As he was praying for guidance, he felt a familiar touch upon his shoulder. He smiled and stood, knowing once again he was in the presence of the lady. "What troubles are on my loyal knight's mind?" Melisandre spoke in the guise of the Lady of the Lake. "My lady, I grow tired of the constant whining and complaining of the lone-born and our errant knights. They feel as if we have abandoned our lands in favor of chaos. I have endeavored to do as you command. However, I do require guidance as to what I should do against this chaos uprising." "You have done well, my knight, and you shall be rewarded again. This time with a victory over the chaos you speak of. The Beastmen of the South have indeed allied themselves with warriors of Nurgle and Tzeentch, and have decided that our beloved lands would be the first target of their new alliance. Go, face them upon the battlefield. Take your grand army and rid our noble lands of this scum. I shall be with you, and together we shall cleanse our lands." "I will do as you command, my lady." Alphoneous smiled and bowed. He left his chambers in search of his second-in-command, Anya Snowmane. Melisandre smiled and moved back into the shadows. Her corruption of the king was solid. She would use him to defeat her enemies, no matter the cost to Alphoneous or Bretonnia. So there you have it, a grand army of Bretonnia going out to break the new alliance between the Beastmen and the Warriors of Chaos. This is our battlefield. Really not much to speak of other than the Cimmerian quicksand that's right in front of our side, and the walls and fences are going to cause a little bit of trouble for the Bretonians. The other thing to keep in mind is because this is the Bretonnia Corrupted army, as part of our narrative scenarios, the Bretonians get their the blessings of the lady, but do not have to pray for them, because they're being supplied by the demonic forces that now rule the army. So that is definitely a little bit of a rules change to be aware of. So we'll start deployment on the left-hand side for Bretonnia. He has a unit of 3 Pegasus Knights that just have a champion. Then he's got a unit of 20 Peasant Bowmen there. They do have full command. And behind them is the first of his 3 trebuchets that he gets as part of a Grand Army. So then he's got a unit of 10 Errant Knights with full command in the Errantry banner. Next is a unit of Knights of the Realm. I believe it's 12 Knights of the Realm. And then in the front of that he has his Paladin BSB and 2 other Paladins. So there's character wall number 1. Next to that is a unit of Grail Knights, and he has 8 Grail Knights there, and Lord Alphoneous is there up front. He has the Sword of Swift String, Grommel Great Helm, and Virtue of Heroism, so always striking first, heroic killing blow is awesome. Then he's got a 50-man brick of peasants. In with them is a Paladin with the Virtue of Empathy and Crown of Command on him. There's also a Damsel of the Lady who is level 2 to life with the prayer icon in there. Behind that is his second trebuchet. And next to that is a second unit of Knights of the Realm with a character wall of 3 Paladins in it. And I'm not really going into the detail on the Paladins. They're all pretty basic, just there for the extra attacks and the grindy power. Then he has another unit of men-at-arms. There's 33 of them in there, and they just have full command. Then there is another unit of peasant bowmen. There's 10 in that unit. And you can see he has a unit of yeomen that is vanguarded up to the front here. Then he's got a lord on a Pegasus with the Heartwood Lance, the armor of Agaluf, Luckstone, Virtue of the Joust, and his third trebuchet in the back. And you can see, unfortunately, Michael's hand's in the way, but you can see he has another unit of peasant yeomen there. Oh, and I forgot, this fountain here is actually a weirding well, and they're definitely going to be, Michael and him are definitely going to be fighting over that due to just the crazy potential for healing there. It's turned the tide of several games we've played in the past, and having one right in the middle is definitely drawing a lot of attention during this setup in this game. Alright, so on my left, I have a Gorebeast Chariot marked Tzeentch. Up on the hill, I have a Slaughter Brute that's linked to my Chaos Lord. Up front there, I have 5 Marauder Horsemen that are vanguarded up. They are marked of Slaanesh. Then I have 5 Knights, Chaos Knights, who are marked Nurgle. They have full command and the Razor Standard on them. Then the Beastmen have a 25-man Gore Herd with full command and additional hand weapons, and hanging out with them is his Great Bray Shaman Morgor, level 4 to Lore of the Wild, Talisman of Preservation, the Hag Tree Fetish, and Steel Claws. Behind them is my Chaos Lord of Tzeentch. He is Dragon Helm, Talisman of Preservation, Other Tricksters, Shards, Soul Feeder, Third Eye of Tzeentch. I then have a bunker of Chaos Marauders, 20 men strong, marked Tzeentch with a flail. With them is my level 2 Chaos Sorcerer to the Lore of Shadow, and he has the Skull of Catan. Then, because I screwed up my deployment, those Khorne warriors are in the building. They're marked there by my BSB, who is with them. He's an exalted hero of Khorne, who's my battle standard bearer, Talisman of Endurance, and Scaled Skin. Next to that, in a line, we've got the Beastmen's 5 Chaos Hounds, then 3 Minotaurs with additional hand weapons and full command, then a unit of Bestigors that is 19 strong, full command, Banner of Swiftness, and they have the Wargor Morgrul in them, who's his BSB, Beast Banner, additional hand weapons, heavy armor, many limb, gnarl hide, and gouged tusks. Then at the far end, we have a second Gore Herd, 20-man with full command and shields. With them is a Bray Shaman, level 2 to the Lore of Beasts, with an additional hand weapon and the Channeling Staff. And last but not least, on the far end, we have Zola the Mighty Gorgon. And he also has 2 groups, and you can see him kind of on the back end here, 2 groups of 5-man Ungor Raiders who are going to be ambushing in. So we start the game with Bretonnia taking the first turn, and he starts off charging his Pegasus Knights into my Slaanesh Marauders here. I choose to flee, and end up fleeing just into the swamp, where 2 of the 5 Marauder Horsemen die to dangerous terrain. Awesome. And they fail their charge, and as you can see, stagger up just a couple of inches, and that really unbalanced one keeps falling over. So he's not dead, he just keeps falling over. And here's where Bretonnia kind of surprises me. He's playing very cagey, which frankly is Skip style, so I shouldn't necessarily be so concerned about it anymore. But he only moves up a couple inches, so even if we move up significantly, he's still going to have really long charges to make. I probably would have been a little bit more aggressive here. I think he moved up 3 or 4 inches with everybody. I probably moved up 6 or 7. Just me. But that's kind of what we're looking at this point. And again, he continues up that same movement here, just a couple inches. He does bring his yeomen out to kind of clog up the charge ways for my Marauders and the Gore Herd here. But yeah, I'm don't know that either of us were planning on coming into that kill zone he's trying to make, so I'm not really sure what he accomplished with that. Then over here he brings out the other yeoman in front of the forest, and you can barely see him, but that lord on the Pegasus is hiding behind the forest now, waiting to come spring out on anything that tries to sweep in from that side. So I got to give him credit. He's definitely has good board coverage here, even if he is playing a little cagey, but I think he respects both me and Michael as opponents and doesn't want to overcommit until he sees what our plans are. And magic is okay, but we go into... Alright, he doesn't choose to make any spells this turn. That's what it happened. So we go into shooting, and his first laser-guided trebuchet lands directly on the Minotaurs, kills one, and puts a single wound on another. Then his second trebuchet misfires, blows itself up, and panics the peasant bowmen here, and they turn and run for the board. They're something like a quarter of an inch from the edge of the board. And then his third trebuchet also misfires and blows itself up, but luckily nobody is panicking off the board for that one. But yeah, definitely went from three trebuchets to one top of turn one. Definitely not a good start for Bretonnian shooting here. So, top of our turn, my lord basically attempts to fly over the Bestigor herd and charge this chaff out of the way, figuring that he would just flee and run off. Unfortunately, he rolled like crap, and is still right in the middle of anything. And my lord could still catch this, and if he does, my lord will be out basically facing the entire Bretonnian army on his own, so I do not like this at all. And then Zola declares a charge against the other the other yeomen. They turn and flee as well. They get quite a bit further than the first group, so they're probably going to be safe there. So after seeing where he fled to with his first group, I realized I cannot allow him to stay there, because it'll get my lord killed. So I declared a charge with my marauders, which pushed him even further, and he ends up within half an inch of the board edge there, but obviously doesn't panic anybody because knights are not panicked by punk-ass peasants. And seeing that, Michael decides to do the same thing with his dogs, I believe, trying to push the yeomen off, but the yeomen roll terrible for their flee and end up right in front of the archers here, which I guess is good. It blocks up those archers, maybe, but this is not necessarily the charge turns we were looking for here. And as a result of those charges, I rolled absolutely terribly when my lord didn't even make it over the Beastmen horde, or the Beastmen horde, and end up just kind of bouncing where I am. The marauders end up basically making it to the fence, which is not really where I wanted them to be, since all they really are is a bunker for that wizard. And here you see where the failed charges from Zola and the dogs end up putting them. I don't think any of us rolled very well for our charges, so there's not a whole lot of movement up there, which is somewhat disconcerting, because we really need to be aggressive if we're going to win this. Over here, my Slaanesh guys rally and kind of move back over. I figure I can take some shots on them, or at least clog up those Pegasus Knights, maybe. And then during remaining moves, the 5 Beastmen Ungor Navy SEALs show up, get a perfect roll to end up right in front of the one remaining trebuchet. And I guess I didn't get a picture of it, but the other 5 show up right next to his lord on the Pegasus that's hiding behind the forest, so perfect rolls there. So on our left-hand side, I'm coming up kind of cautiously with everything. I know he's got some big guns over in those 2 Knight Lances, but I do need to move these pieces into some sort of position. So I start, again, being a little more cautious than maybe I normally would. This is the first time I've used the Gorbeast Chariot, but I love the idea of killing blow on the impact hits, just shredding some of these knights, so I would definitely want to get him into some action. And my Slaughter Beast is standing on the hill waving to everybody, because I'm not really sure what he can handle in this army. Basically everything in our center advances up. I bring my Warriors of Chaos out of the building, so they're in front of it now. The nice thing about this is because the Bretonnians were not really aggressive enough, he's still needing like 11s to hit us. And I think that's going to give us a chance to kind of get our battle line together a little bit better before he gets all up in our faces. Then over here, the Beastmen are struggling with a little bit of containment issues. He's a little too packed in here. He is trying to move up what he can, but with the dogs having failed like they did, his Bestigors are stuck behind him. The Minotaurs have to sort of sidestep so they'll be able to get around. It's not looking good for us as far as ease of movement over here. The terrain really is bottling us up a little bit. So during the magic phase, I get Pit of Shades off irresistibly. It ends up hitting his peasant block and kills 6 of them. However, I miscast, take a with the small template, take a wound on my wizard, and kill 4 of my marauder guys here. So this isn't good. On top of that, I'm using the Skull of Katam, and I've already lost 1 point of leadership because I'm rolling ones. So, and for those of you keeping track at home, this is either the 3rd or 4th game where I have miscast the first turn, the first spell I've attempted. I'm really having a bad run with Magic these days, and it's really kind of ridiculous. And I didn't even 6 dice this. I think it was a 4 or 5 dice attempt, and miscast the crap out of it. So, yeah, that kind of sucks. And I ended up making us lose the remaining 6 dice out of our pool, because we had a great pool this turn, but we lost extra 6 dice out of our pool, so my Beastman ally got no dice to spend. Then over here into shooting, the Navy SEALs end up shooting 5 shots and putting 2 wounds on the trebuchet. It was ridiculous. And even more ridiculous, but I didn't take pictures of it because it was hiding behind the forest, the other 5 Ungors took 5 shots at the Lord on Pegasus and put 2 wounds on him. So those freaking Ungors are like the MVP of the game up to this point. So we go to Bretonnia turn 2, and these yeomen fail to rally, run through the peasant bowmen that were behind them, who panic and run off the board. So his flank on the right there is definitely having some issues. It's kind of a soft flank, but the problem is that we're too bunched up to take advantage of it at this point. So if something's going to crumble, this is probably the better thing for the Bretonnians to have crumble at this point. Then back here, the peasant yeomen rally, but there's really nothing for them to do because they're trapped in by all of the knight lances around. And you can see in the back his other unit of archers who panicked from the trebuchet blowing up rallied as well. So he does no charges. He moves up the Pegasus Knights here to chaff up this big brick of gores, which I guess is okay. I'm planning on flying over them and killing those guys with my Chaos Lord on a disc, so that's pretty good. So only other thing of note he was able to do was he flies over here with his Lord on the Pegasus and drinks from the fountain and ends up getting the number 6 result, which makes him stupid and unbreakable for the rest of the game. So we go into our turn 2, and the Ungors, who really are the best of the Gores at this point, charge into the trebuchet to go ahead and take care of them. And then my Chaos Lord on the disc flies up and hits the Pegasus Knights. I'm figuring I've got 6 strength 6 attacks with my halberd. I should be able to carve these guys up pretty good and get them the heck out of our way. Then over here you see I'm getting aggressive again, probably stupidly so. I've got my Marauders there in case he wants to come at them just to kind of block up some charge lanes. I'm moving the Knights up, and here's where I got stupid. I basically put my Slaughter Brute right behind the Knights. And that's just, against Bretonnia, that's just begging for an overrun. And then I've got my Gore Beast over on the side. Then over here, you do see he did move up his peasants last turn. I forgot to note that. But so he moves the dogs to redirect the peasants, and the Minotaurs come right up to the fountain. They're going to try and drink and get healthy again. Spoiler alert, all they get is stupid and unbreakable. And you see the Gore shooters are coming, or the Ungore shooters are coming around to try and put some more holes in that Lord. And everything else on that flank is kind of trying to sort itself out and get to where it can do something significant. So, like Deja Vu, I end up getting off Pit of Shades Irresistible again. It drifts, it only hits one of his paladins who makes his initiative save, and it kills 2 peasants. It was really terrible. We then did the swap that you get for casting a spell from the Lore of Shadow, and put me in the Beastmen horde and moved Morgul out of the way. And this time the miscast was the big template. The template damage killed my wizard and blew up a rank plus of the gore. So that is a miscast on my first spell 2 rounds straight, and this is, I believe, the second or third game that's happened. And I just need to stop playing wizards, I think. Just absolutely not take them anymore, because I'm getting the crap beaten out of me with them. And they're doing it. It's not like my opponent is like jacking me in the face or anything. It's like my wizards are killing themselves. So in combat, the Ungors kill the Trebuchet and only lose 1 of their number in return. So that was totally awesome. No rocks raining down from us we have to deal with anymore. Of course, we got super lucky that the first 2 Trebuchets blew themselves up. I don't even want to know what our lines would look like if he's had 2 turns of Trebuchet firing on us. And then in this combat, he answers my challenge, and my Chaos Lord fluffs. Out of 5 attacks, I hit twice and then rolled 2 1s to wound. Did nothing. My disc hit nothing. Luckily, he hit back with nothing, so I win by 1 just from the charge. And he sticks, though, so that was decidedly not good. So he charges with the errantry. On his turn, he charges with the errantry knights against my chaff. I stand and shoot. He then charges them again with the Night Realm unit that's next to that, and I flee. So I run. He then redirects into my Nurgle knights that are here up front, and declares a charge with the next rank of knights, which are his Grail knights, into that same Nurgle Knight unit. So he's got long charges to him, and I've stopped the Errantry Knight from getting involved, but it's still the potentiality for some messiness over here. Then over here, he declares a charge with the peasants against the dogs, and Michael chooses to flee, and I have no freaking idea why he chose to flee. He should have taken that in the face and let me sort of countercharge, but unfortunately I was out of the room at this point, because my daughter was being fussy, so I was trying to help her get her to bed. And, yeah, this was dumb. So he redirects the peasants into my Chaos Warriors. And he tries to put that other knight into them, other knight lance into them well, and fails that. But you can see here, he does succeed the charge of the peasants into the Chaos Warrior brick. And he succeeds both of his knight lances into the Nurgle Knights, and I am thinking I'm just going to get chewed the hell up. My only hope for doing damage at this point is seriously the fact that if he overruns with the 1 lance of Grail Knights, he's going to run into that swamp, and it might do some damage. But that is a crap ton of Knights and Paladins. And then over here you see where he attempted to charge and clip the corner of that, the warrior unit, and, or no, I'm sorry, this is after combat. So yeah, he must not have done anything magically speaking, and no shooting left. So yeah, my warriors obviously break these peasants. The paladin does 1 wound to me, and I chase them, but they get away to here. Over here with the fight with my lord, we finally kill one of the paladins in the challenge. He's needing well, his general's right there now, so he needs like a 6 or 7 and sticks it out again. So my Chaos Lord is being held up by what is essentially flying chaff. Then during combat over here, I actually didn't do bad. The Knight of the Realm unit actually failed their fear check, so he didn't do basically anything to me. Alphoneous flailed in a challenge against my Chaos Champion here. And I stood up. I killed a couple of a couple of Realm Knights. He killed a couple of mine, but just the static combat res had me like needing a 4 with no reroll because my BSB is way the hell out of position. So I break. He runs me down, slams into the front of the Slaughter Brute, but as I predicted, he did lose one Grail Knight from dangerous terrain as they ran over the swamp. So that's a win! But I've got a good flank charge with the Chariot here into the flank of those Realm Knights, so maybe that'll turn into something. I can only hope at this point, because those two Lances, I've got very little on this side of the board that's going to be able to even slow them down. So we go into our turn 3, and the Gorebeast Chariot comes slamming into the side of these Realm Lances. All I can hope is for just a crazy number of impact hits, maybe get some killing blow and thin them down a little bit. And over here, I charge with my Chaos Warriors. The peasants run like nothing. I hit them and then reform this way, facing the flank of that Knight unit. Hoping maybe I can get in there and mix it up. With just the sheer number of attacks I can do, maybe I'll sneak some stuff through the armor. Over here, my ally slams his Minotaurs into the front of the Knight Lord, who only has 1 wound on him, so he's really hoping to kill him in impact hits here. He is going to drink from the fountain this turn, and the Minotaur unit will be back to full strength before he hits in there. As you can see, Zola tries to charge the Yeoman and doesn't go anywhere. Then over here, my 3 Slaanesh horse guys rally and just move the hell out of the way of this wrecking ball that's coming down my face. And the dogs fail to rally and continue running. Spoiler alert, they will never rally and will run off the board, I believe, next turn. And this may start looking a little chaotic, but he's moving up his Beastmen. We had to move the walls because Michael doesn't have any of his Beastmen magnetized, so they can't just kind of sit up on the walls when they're a little over top of it, or they'll just fall into big piles. So that's why the walls look all jacked up. And then he reforms his Gore unit smaller so that he can squeeze by, realizing that I am going to take forever to kill these Pegasus Knights with my Chaos Lord, which is more than a little ridiculous. And here you see the now fully powered Minotaurs murder the Knight there. This actually might not be where they kill him. This might just be the picture from them drinking. But yeah, they're going to kill him in impact hits. And during Magic, that must have just been drinking, because during Magic, he ends up using Bray Scream and passing it through my General, because it can be any friendly character, and I end up killing one of the 2 Paladins with the Bray Scream. And shooting between the 2 Ungor units, they end up killing one of the mounted yeomen. They were still at full strength, so that's not enough to cause any sort of panic check. Then during combat, my Chaos Lord finally manages to kill the freaking Pegasus Knights. But because I killed him to a man, I can't overrun, so all I'm doing is turning and looking at the Knights over there. I just don't know what I'm going to do. This is going very, very badly for me. Then during the combat over here, my Chariot kills 2 or 3 Knights, but then Lord Alphoneous reminds me that he has Heroic Killing Blow by murdering my Slaughter Brute in a single blow. So yeah, they beat the crap out of me there. And the Chariot breaks, runs off the table. The Knights on that side follow them and go off the table, but they'll be back next turn. And here's just a better picture of that, and you can see the Grail Knights turn and face down my General, which I'm like, okay, maybe I can handle that. I'll have to challenge out. He'll probably throw Alphoneous in it. And I've got a 3-up ward save rerolling 1, so I'm not all that concerned about Heroic Killing Blow. Yep, and here's the picture I alluded to earlier. Minotaurs kill that lord, overrun 4 inches, and they now have frenzy and an extra attack, so that's pretty awesome. So, Bretonia turn, I guess this must be 4. The Grail Knights slam into the front of my general, even though it doesn't look like it. That's as close as they can really get. But he does end up losing 2 more Grail Knights to dangerous terrain. Because he basically hits the marsh on one side and the fence on the other. So he had a bunch of dangerous terrains and lost, I believe, 2 of them. Then his Realm Knight, or his Errant Knight unit from the back charges and hits the 3 remaining Marauder Horsemen. And that's just going to be, I'm going to make my attacks and then pick them up, because that lance is going to murder them. And then in the center here, he makes his charge with the peasants and that big unit of knights. They have to go over 2 walls, though, and in dangerous terrain, he loses a knight, and then each of the paladins in the front of that unit take a wound from dangerous terrain. It was pretty terrible. And then over here, his yeomen try and charge the 4 Ungors, who stand and shoot, kill one of them, panic it, and they're running the other direction now. So that was pretty awesome. And so during Magic, you can see all the Magic cards on the board now. He ends up getting Wissons on the Knight unit, Savage Beast in a bubble, and Curse of Honra here off on my general. So it was just an absolute mess this turn. He just bent us over and spanked us with Magic. And in combat, obviously the Knight unit kills my 3 Marauder Horsemen and turns around like this. The other Knight unit also came back on the board, so there's basically 2 fully powered lances coming to support what I don't think even needs any support. So there's that. So during combat, he chooses to do the combat with my Lord first. Basically, I fluff at him. He beats me in static combat res because he fluffs back. And I break. And so you see now I'm in between the Beast unit and my Marauders, which lets him overrun, or pursue rather, into the flank of that Gore unit, and it's just bad time for them. And over here, the the Gore unit just gets slaughtered. They're killed pretty much to a man. The Bretonian player chooses to overrun with his Knight unit, basically to prevent me from bringing my Marauders into their flank. But he rolled pretty bad and didn't overrun enough, so he's blocking his Grail Knights from getting to my general, which I think is pretty good. You can also see here, last turn, I didn't mention it, but he brought up his yeoman to get in the way of my warriors, so that if I hit him, I'll have to overrun basically off in the wrong direction. But we go into our turn 4. Minotaurs charge the yeomen that were against that end. They are already fleeing, so I have to flee and go off the board. Over here, the Marauders slam into the flank of the peasants. My Chaos Warriors slam into the front of his yeomen, and my Lord rallies. So, sort of good. And then on this side, the Beastmen finally realize that the real fight is on the other side of the table, and they turn around and start walking down the road to come see what's going on. So we don't have shit for Magic, so the combat at the top, obviously my warriors just annihilate the yeomen and have to overrun, as you see. We actually do a decent amount of damage to the peasants in the middle, but they're just so big. They are disrupted, and we win this combat, actually, but he has the Crown of Command, or he's stubborn. Either way, he's got Crown of Command and he's stubborn, so he's not going anywhere there. So, top of Bretonia 5, he basically reforms his knights so that he can see my Lord. And other than that, he doesn't have much to do. I think he tries Longbomb charging my warriors with the 2 knight lances there on the left, but fails it, and they're kind of moved up there. And Uh, yeah, I think he might be moving up his peasants as we see them. Yeah, because that's the failed charge pictures there. So during Bubble, he ends up beating us by 1 point on casting Bubble Savage. So he's got just crazy amounts of power right here, and I don't want to deal with him. I mean, at least it's top of 5, so he's only gonna have one more turn to charge. So my plan is to not be there come our next turn. He ends up using his peasant bowman to shoot my warriors during shooting and kills 2 of them. He also did get Throne of Vines and Earthblood off on his peasant unit, so we are just getting absolutely beat in the magic phase. So in combat, he doesn't manage to kill anything. We actually end up bouncing on this combat, and nobody won. It was a total tie. But this time, as opposed to last time, he was able to successfully reform. So now he's in my front, and those Marauders are going to have a bad day. So during our turn 5, I decide to charge basically over the Grail Knights and slam into these Knight Errants because they don't have a buttload of characters in them. So hopefully I'll win out on a challenge and then maybe next turn be able to carve them up a little bit. Then the Beastmen finally decide to show up for work, and the Bestigor herd with his BSB gets in there and slams into the flank of the Paladins. Or not the Paladins, the flank of the Peasants. And I definitely am glad they're here because we need them. And then Zola comes down to the bottom here, hiding behind the building, and is getting ready for a charge into the flank of one of those knight units on our next turn, unless the Bretonians move him around. And then you just see here how he's moving everything else up to hopefully have it matter. Unfortunately, I don't know how much of it's going to, since it's so late in the game at this point. So we go into combat here. We kill a boatload of peasants. Unfortunately, Morgrul gets killed and by the paladin that's in the unit. But the paladin gets killed back. So, yeah, it's pretty messy there. But I think everybody holds this turn. Then over here, I do kill... No, I fluff again and no one dies. But I do manage to hold and don't run off, which is, I guess, as good as it's going to get there. This Chaos Lord has been supremely disappointing. So during top of 6, he attempts to charge his Grail Knights into Zola, who's just off to the right here, and this long unit of Knights into the flank of my Marauders. He ends up resolving the Grail Knights charge first, and they get pathetically low on the dice roll and end up blocking up the other charge. So that's pretty much where he's stuck. Then up here he moves the archers closer to my warriors so he can thin them down and potentially flee away from me if I try and charge, so I'm not going to be able to get into anything good. He backs up his other knight unit, and I think it was because he was afraid I would hit and carry over that he didn't charge the knight unit with all the characters into my character, but that was probably a mistake. So we go into combat because he chooses not to try any spells in case he blows himself up. And my lord here kills his champion. I still lose combat by 1. But I stick, and Eye of the Gods gives me an extra attack. So my hope here is if I can kill a bunch of these guys and break them, maybe I can even panic the other unit. So as you can see in the bottom here, I didn't get a picture of it because I'm dumb. We do finally break the peasants, and the Beastigor, or the Beast Herd, yeah, Bestigors, they reform to look at the flank of the Grail Knights, and my 3 remaining Marauders chase down the peasants and destroy them. But this is top of our turn. I charge the peasants and they flee. And I charge them twice with the 3 remaining guys, but my warriors end up catching and destroying them. So that's pretty good there. Then over here in a last-ditch effort, top of 6, he charges the Bestigors into the flank of the Grail Knights and tries to charge Zola into the front, fails the Zola charge, but the Bestigors and Morgor are in the flank, his BSB, are in the flank of the Grail Knights, and if they can do some work there, we may have a chance at this game. He holds our magic phase down, so during combat, my lord finally decides to show up for work, slaughters 3 knights, but then my opponent rolls like a 2 for his rally, or his break check, and doesn't go anywhere. So that's pretty much my last chance to contribute to our win, and it failed. So this is the last picture of the game. The Bestigor herd slaughtered the Grail Knights to a man. All that was left was Lord Alphoneous, and he broke and was run down, and the Bestigor herd slams into the front of this other knight unit. So we did get a huge point swing on the last turn, but as you can see, everybody's going to their calculators on their phones to see if it was worth enough to decide this game. King Alphoneous awoke with a start. He looked around and was relieved and confused to find himself in his personal chapel. The last thing he remembered was his horse being cut out from under him by the Bestigors as he tried to withdraw. All at once his fears and concerns were washed away from him as the form of the lady appeared before him. Injured as he was, Alphoneous knelt before his mistress. "You have done well, Alphoneous," she said. "But, great lady, we did not destroy the chaos beasts or their allies," he interrupted. A look of annoyance briefly flashed upon the lady's face at Alphoneous' interruption, but it was gone in an instant. "Perhaps not, but you did succeed in driving the beasts away from the farmlands and back towards the mountains, and that is a feat to be proud of." "Yes, my lady, though I wish that I had seen the battle through to its conclusion." "Indeed," the lady responded, "and that is why I have come to speak with you. The blame for your defeat in the last moments of the battle I lay upon the Knights of the Grail." Alphoneous was shocked to hear the lady speak so about her chosen companions, and remained silent. "This is a time of great upheaval, my loyal Alphoneous, as I am sure you know there are those in your kingdom who are losing faith, and I am concerned that the Knights of the Grail are among them." "Then what shall we do, lady?" "As they have earned their station through mighty deeds, so must they now prove themselves. Choose the greatest in standing from the remaining Grail Knights in your lands. Call them forth to seek out the Beastmen and destroy those who have escaped from you. If they have remained faithful, their deeds will prove it, and the Beastmen threat will be broken." Alphoneous nodded at the lady's logic. "And if they have lost their way, the Beastmen will deal with them before their treachery can bear fruit." The lady smiled at him. "Exactly, my champion. Now go, and call all those of the Grail Vow who remain in their chapels, for we must move quickly if our plans are to succeed." So, after tallying up the points, it turns out that the corrupted Bretonnians claimed victory by just about 200 points, despite our late rally. It was a good game. It was very tight. I felt like we were getting just crap kicked out of us, but that last-minute turnaround definitely brought it back into balance. I definitely think this is one of the better games that Skip, our Bretonnian player, has ever played. He was really on top of things. He's definitely getting a handle on the Bretonnians and learning just general tactics. His tactics were much better here than they have been previously. So I wanted to comment on that and say good work, man. This is, I believe, his second victory with Bretonnia. Certainly his second since the start of the narrative battles. So definitely congratulations there. His list was solid. It's hard to deal with that many characters and that many lances. I think the only thing that even made it a battle was that he blew up 2 of his 3 trebuchets early on. As far as my list goes, I really need to stop thinking that the Chaos Lord on the disc is a good idea. I I think I'm just gonna go with him as a Chaos Sorcerer Lord on a disc from now on, and just stop trying to have him fly around and kill things because it's just flat out not working. Um, Maybe I'll try, like, if I can figure out some points. Maybe I'll give him like the stubborn crown, and because I mean the big problem is he's still breaking and fleeing just from static combat res. He can get in there and he can kill, and he can be hard to kill. He just breaks from static combat res, and I need to stop that from happening. Beyond that, I brought too many toys and not enough bodies to this fight. Is pretty much what I've assumed, and I kind of played like balls. So it was not my best game by any stretch of the imagination. But I'm still in a position with the Warriors of Chaos that I'm so in love with so many of their toys and the big monsters and chariots and fun stuff that I'm just not leaving myself enough bodies. Particularly if I'm not willing to go with the Demon Prince cheese and just like death magic everything to death. So, which I'm not willing to do. It's not what I want this army to be. So I'm gonna, I think, have to go back to the drawing board on this particular army list. As far as the Beastmen, they did well, although I think we were really in a situation where we were mismatched. The Bretonnians were able to hit us in our weak flank, and yeah, we gave up, or they gave up pretty much their whole right flank to the Beastmen, but there wasn't really anything for points there, and he basically was able to wipe out just about my entire army, and it ended up showing in the end. He was up by the points and took home the win, so... The Beastmen army list was pretty solid, though, or is at least as solid as their list ever gets. I think our big failing there is we screwed up deployment pretty royally. My bunker was too far up. He kind of packed his stuff in behind itself, and we just weren't able to bring our tools to bear in the way we needed to, and the Bretonnians just sliced us up like lunch meat. But all in all, it was a fun game. I hope you guys enjoyed watching the battle report. If you have any comments, again, please leave them below. If you have any questions, I definitely try and engage them and answer them all. If this is your first battle report that you've ever watched, I hope you enjoy it, and please subscribe to the channel. We always like seeing new faces around. Otherwise, thank you guys for watching this one, and we will catch you next time.